Fabulous Tales and Fables ASAP by Owen T. Duggan. Story 5. Good Landlord, Bad Tenants. First part. My retirement farm, a landlord said one day. Or, even better, my retirement orchard. In an orchard, you can just reach up and pluck a piece of fruit off the tree and eat it on the spot, just like that. It was time to decide. Having saved money all his life, he could finally afford to develop a piece of land he owned far out in the countryside, and by starting his dream home this year, he could move into it as soon as the place was ready to enjoy. "Aha! I have it," said the landlord, thinking of one last improvement on the idea. "Even better than an orchard is the legacy of fine wine. I shall build my retirement vineyard." The project was launched at the site with a speech, which is a good way to launch a project. "Fine wine takes time," the landlord told some workers he was hiring. "So I shall need to get busy right away. By next year, I expect you to have the vines planted and the walls erected. Good high walls will keep animals out, like wild goats. Dig a well while you're at it. Do all this for me, and I shall give you a cow for your daily milk and other domestic livestock as well. Maybe chickens. Also, you can bring your families in to help and to live here as tenants while you work. The more diligent you are, the more rewards I shall provide." Next year, as the tenant workers were tending vines and finishing walls, the landlord showed up. "Not bad," he said. "Not bad at all. Next, build a sheltered lookout midway on each wall, so a person can keep watch in all directions. Someday raiders may come, and if a single wall is unguarded, that's where they will break in and raid the place. Also, some say enchanters roam this countryside. Don't let them in. They may trick you and say I sent them. So, let's have this as our password. Fine wine takes time. Got it? Okay, be vigilant. Stay safe, work hard. Oh, and bring me some grapes once they ripen. They won't be great for winemaking yet, but I need to test the first fruit off the vine." Next year, a modest delivery of grapes showed up in the city. The landlord popped one into his mouth, tasted it, and spat it out. He wrote a letter, and he spoke as he wrote. "Definitely not the world's best grapes for making fine wine. However, my good tenants, do go ahead and construct a wine press, so that after the fullness of the next harvest, you can press some grapes into juice. In conclusion, do send me, fair tenants, the juice that you produce." The landlord turned to his trusty messenger. "Can you read this message back to me?" he said.
"No, sir. Sorry, I can't."
This was a surprise. The landlord's messenger had always been dutiful, diligent. Raven-black hair, light on her feet. His messenger, the daughter of dutiful messengers, was not one to refuse performance of a task. "Perhaps she has changed," thought the landlord. Indeed, she had made the shift away from being daughterly. She was far from childish. The way she stood was like a warrior woman. She seemed more ready for combat than for dance. Not exactly ladylike, you could say. and always, as now, she wore clothing more suited to a boy or a man. But why suddenly so combative, so disobedient? He sometimes fired the people he hired when they failed to perform. For a bonded servant, sworn to unquestioning service, there were other punishments. The salt mines, for example. But he would give her a chance to explain. He was genuinely puzzled, but not angry. Not yet. Are you refusing my command?
I mean to say, I can't read that message back to you, sir, because I do not know how to read. Nobody has ever taught me.
Oh, of course, of course. That's quite right. You can't read. You're not educated. I know. Can you just deliver this letter to the workers? Hand it over to them.
Sir, you'll pardon me. The workers don't know how to read either. How about this? If you read out the letter to me a few times, I'll memorize it.
Good. Well done. That's what I was going to think of next. I guess I've just been so busy and distracted lately. And don't forget the password.
I do know it, sir. Fine wine takes time. It's memorized already.
Oh, and don't forget the message, of course.
I won't, sir. Send the juice that you produce and all that.
Oh, and don't forget to bring the workers those seasoned barrels I was collecting. They're in the cellar. You know, the ones engraved with the grinning man wearing leaves and grapes on his head. They'll be useful as containers for transporting the juice that they produce. The feisty, black-haired messenger departed, leaving the landlord to think about how each and every soul had its place in this world, and that this messenger's place was as a humble servant from a family of servants. Attractive, yes, she was, but young enough to be his daughter, and not educated, not an erudite, mannerly lady. I really ought to release her from service, he speculated. Freedom, with all the risk that comes with it, would be her reward. It was almost time for that. He would grant her leave to get married and start a family of her own, but only after she had proven herself to the fullest. The best rewards must follow the best service. Water the tree that bears the fruit, but prune the branches that wither, he said, remembering an old saying he had once memorized. Suddenly, in a pleasant mood, he fantasized about life in his completed retirement vineyard. And so, into the next year, the tenants worked diligently. The landlord made extra diligent preparations to retire. And everything stayed on schedule, and no one had the foggiest clue ahead of time that the entire project was on the verge of going massively, horribly, tragically wrong.